degenen die gisteren niet aanwezig waren. Prabhu gaat maar door met zijn tweede deel van zijn katha. Prabhu is oorspronkelijk van UK, maar hij is nu in Nairobi, eigenlijk woont hij nu. Hij is samengekomen met zijn familie gekomen. Mataradharan, Kishanji, en de huisvrouw, Baba. Vandaag gaat Prabhu verder met zijn katha. Prabhu heeft ook een bijdrage geleverd aan het boek Kirtan Revelation, dat op het altaar staat. Prabhu gaat dat niet vandaag vertellen, hij gaat morgen iets over vertellen. Dus dan zijn jullie verplicht om morgen terug te komen. Dus, en het verkopen gaat ook niet vandaag, maar gaat ook morgen. So, thank you very much, Prabhuji.
So we'll start off with our Mangalacharan shlokas. Whoever knows them can say them. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Ashtakayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Rutam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavinay Slikim Mukam karoti vashanam Pangam lambhayate gilim Jat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Jayatam Surato Pangur Mama Mandamati Rati Matsarvasya Padam Mujo Shri Shri Radha Madanamo Hano Divyat Vrindaranya Kalpatrumada Shrimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Shrimad Radha Shiragovinda Devo Prestali Sevya Mano Smarami Shrimad Rasarasarambi Vamsivata Tata Stitaha Kalsanavenu Svane Gopi Gopinatha Shreyastuna Ajanulambito Bhujo Kanakavadato Sankirtane Kapitaro Kamalataksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Jugadharmapalo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunayavataro Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So some really nice, wonderful kirtan was done before I came downstairs. So I just want to share my compliments with the devotees here that are trying hard and increasing the spirit of kirtan. Ultimately, devotion is an art. Except for Nam Japa, all devotion is an art. Bhakti ek kala hai. And we can see this because even in dressing deities, some art is required. In singing, some art is required. In cooking, some art is required. In everything that we do in devotion, in speaking, a little bit of art is required. Of course, you speak from the heart, but you know, the way you present the information, a little bit of art is required. So ultimately, when you look at it, some art is required, and therefore the gopis of Vrindavan mastered 64 arts. But they did it with one purpose, that may our art be targeted towards Krishna, his pleasure. May it be connected with him. हमारी जो कलाएं हैं वो भगवान से संबंधित हो, वही इनकी चेष्टा थी गोपियों की. The gopis were trying that. So yesterday we can backtrack a little bit, yeah, just to understand who. Just raise your hand so I can understand who wasn't here yesterday. Okay. 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 So about half the room wasn't here yesterday. Yeah. Okay. So we went into this Leela of the Dvija Patnis in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We will hear this katha of the wives of the Brahmanas, right? So the Gopas were hungry. They asked Krishna, what do you think we should do? Krishna and Balaram. They said, please kill this demon that resides in our stomach. So then Krishna said, do you see that smoke in the distance? Go to that place and beg for some food. Initially, the cowherd boys were very reserved. The cowherd boys were saying, no, 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 we're not going to go here. Because we're Vaishnavas, we're not beggars. So why should we go to such a place? So Krishna was telling them, no, if you want food, that you should go and beg, but he had a purpose in his mind, right? The verse was Vipra Bharyaya Prasidam Idam Abravit, that to please the wives of the Brahmanas, Vipra Bharyaya, to please them, Krishna sent them there. But before he sent them there, he wanted to show what is the condition of the Brahmanas. So the Brahmanas were ritualistic. Even though they were so good at reciting the Vedic mantras, they didn't understand that the whole purpose of the Vedic mantras is the satisfaction of Bhagavan Vishnu. Right? Tad artham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. It's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? And then there's another verse in the Bhagavatam. He says, Nahi Veda Swartha Gatim Hi Vishnu. Many people don't know that for their self-benefit, they just have to connect with Lord Vishnu. Nahi Veda. They don't know. Swa Artha. For their self-interest, Gatim Hi Vishnu. Their Bhagavan Vishnu Gati hai. Hindi is okay, right? For most of the people over here.
Maybe for them.
Yeah.
Only Makkan.
Yeah. But what I mean to say is when I translate in Hindi, yeah, as in when I say the same thing in Hindi, most people understand, right? Okay. Samajhte hai na thoda thoda. Okay. So anyway, the cowherd boys went there and they asked the Brahmanas that, what do you think? Do you think you can give us some food? And the Brahmanas just looked at each other and they didn't say anything. They didn't say yes. They didn't say no. So we got to text number 9. And this is the text where Shukadev Goswami is swearing at the Brahmanas, gali de rahe Brahmano ko, that Shudrasa Bhuri Karma Balisa Vriddhamanina, that he's literally saying that even though these Brahmanas believe themselves to be very elevated, Vriddhamanina, अपने आप को मान रहे हैं कि हम बहुत बुद्धिमानी हैं, Vriddhamanina, they believe themselves to be very learned, Balisa, they're actually children, Bal, a child, and Shuddhrasa, very low mentality. Hmm? So then in text in 11 it says Deshakala Pritak Dravyam Mantra Tantra Dvijagyaya Devata Yajamanascha Kratur Dharmascha Yanmayaha Tam Brahma Paramam Shakshad Bhagavantum Madhokshajam Manusya Drishta Dushpragya Martyamano Name Nire. So, could the sacrifice have been ignored halfway? Was it reasonable for the cowherd boys to tell the Brahmins, stop everything you're doing and feed us? Well, one consideration is that for Bhagavan's pleasure, everything can be done. No matter what happens in life, everything can be stopped. And just like I think we may have discussed during the Ras Leela, when Krishna played the fifth note of the flute, at that time an amazing sound entered into every gopi's ear. And it was a ekdam mandasi awaz thi. It was a very soft sound that entered into the ears of the gopis. And this soft sound, it carried the name of every single gopi. Very, they could almost hear their name being called by this sound. But it was resounding. It wasn't just once. Bar bar gungunara tha gopiyon ke kaan mein. It was again and again being recited in the ear of the gopis. But it wasn't just a name, it was a name calling. It was calling the gopis individually. Please come. ये भगवान का मोहक मंत्र है ये भगवान बुला रहे हैं. And at the same time, to seal that connection, the gopis were also waiting. It's like news that you've been waiting for your whole life, and then finally that calling comes. So in the same way, the gopis were so engrossed in thoughts of Krishna that when Krishna called them, they immediately left every single thing that they were doing. Some gopis were serving their husbands. As soon as the calling came, they just threw their plates, they threw the dish onto the floor. Wahi kheer ko patka, wahi ke wahi. Aur fir bhagi gopi. On top of that, some gopis had just put kajal in one eye. For a woman to be dressed properly when presenting herself in public is a very important thing, right? Some gopis, in their craziness, they wore their blouse on their feet. The two holes where the blouse is, they put one leg in one hole and the other leg in the other hole, and they wore the blouse. And then they ran towards Krishna. And then the strange thing also that night was, as they were running, right, they didn't recognize each other. They didn't acknowledge each other's presence. Gopis move in what they call yuthas. Gopiyo yuth mein jati hai. Yuth mein mane ke apne sang mein jati hai. Gopis have groups. So whatever they do, they go in groups. Right? When Radharani goes somewhere, Lalita is always thinking of Radharani. Radharani is thinking of Lalita. Lalita also thinks of Vishaka Devi. Vishaka Devi thinks of Manjaris. Manjaris think of each other. Even sometimes it's mentioned that when Radha and Krishna, they have their pastimes in Vilas Kunj. Manjari sometimes are watching, and Manjari wahi soch rahi hai, कभी कभी के इतना आनंद आ रहा है रूप मंजरी सोच रही है कि रति मंजरी कहाँ है इस वक्त. Rupa Manjari is thinking within herself, where is Rati Manjari? Why is she not experiencing what I am experiencing? Now, obviously this is a little bit of a, you can say, a more refined science within bhakti, and some people may say, oh, what is our qualification to hear these things? Actually, the qualification to hear Radha and Krishna's pastimes are, of course, one has to be, following the principles of sadhana. But actually, Tatra lolyam mulyam api ekalam. One simply requires greed. You don't need so many other qualifications. If you have greed, you can hear it. Just like when I was hearing Ras Leela one time, I was experiencing that this is so sweet. This is so nice. The way my guru explains it. I've not heard so many other people speaking Ras Leela, but the way Radha Govind Maharaj explains it, I said the whole world should drink this. And then I asked Maharaj, I said, Maharaj, कहने और सुनने का अधिकार किसके पास है रास लीला? And Maharaj looked at me and he said, whoever has the desire. जिसको सुनना है सुन सकते हैं. You can pick up the Krishna book and read Ras Leela. Right? What is the Ras Leela? It's there in the Krishna book as well. Isn't it? But it's the greed. Of course, what Srila Prabhupada didn't want is for us to become cheap imitators. Yeah? Cheap imitators. So what is a cheap imitator? It's someone who pretends to be in a position which they are not in. For example, kabhi, let's just say I'm medium. I'm not extremely wealthy. I'm not extremely poor either, right? I'm okay. I've got maybe, 20, 25,000, 30,000 euros saved up in my bank account. I've got a nice house. I've got a few cars to my name. But I'm walking around as if I am worth millions of dollars. I'm trying to show everyone that I'm worth millions of dollars. And I act as if I'm worth millions of dollars. So this is where the problem starts. Wanting $1 million is not a problem, right? It's like if you ask everybody in this room, do you want to become rich? Someone may say, yes, I want to become very rich. So wanting to become very wealthy is one thing, right? And pretending that you are wealthy is another thing. Amir hona और अमीर होने का दिखावा करना वो अलग बात है. So sahajya means someone who doesn't have but they display that they have, which is where all these upper sampradayas came from. The aulas, the baulas, karta bhajas, the saki bhekis. ये सब लोग कहाँ से आए? ये सब लोग, because on the wake of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, ये सब लोग चाहते थे कि, we show that we are something that we're not, right? That's where the problem comes in. So moving back into the to the flow of this katha, that all things can be sacrificed for Krishna's pleasure. Normally when one is serving their husband, right, that's one of the highest dharmas for a woman, right? But if it comes to Krishna, then one can even leave serving the husband for some time and move to Krishna. And the gopiyon ka to tyag to bahut bada tha. The gopis santajya sarva vishayans tava padamula maivam vibhor hati bhavan gaditam nirsamsam. So the gopis santyajya sarva vishayans tava padamulam. They were saying, Krishna, please don't say such cruel things. Krishna was really twisting them. When the gopis arrived at Ras, he was twisting them. He was saying, oh, swagatam vo mahabhaga. Welcome. Imagine you leave everything and you go to your most beloved person. And he says, swagatam, welcome. Welcome. Yeah? Oh, you're very, very fortunate women. Mahabhaga. Right? Priyam kim karavami va. What can I do for you? What can I do for you that makes you happy? Right? Is everything okay in Vrindavan? Is everything okay in Vrindavan? Because normally when so many people come to Krishna, there's something going wrong. Dena ka sur aa gaya, arista sur aa gaya, koi na koi aa gaya. Right? सब कुछ ठीक है? Huh? And then when the gopis weren't saying anything, they were looking at each other like, kya ho gaya hai isko? Right? Why is he asking us such questions? Right? Then he says, but if everything's okay in Vrindavan, then Bhuta Gamanakaran. Then आप क्यों आए? Why have you come here? अगर वृंदावन में सब कुछ ठीक है, there's no panic in Vrindavan, then I am standing here alone in the middle of the night. I'm just minding my own business. I'm playing the flute. Why have you all come? झुंड में क्यों आए तुम लोग? So the gopis went, but without the intention to come back. So this is a very high darshan of what Krishna Bhakti is. So, so here Sukadev Goswami says, Desha Kala Pritag Dravyam. Desha, the land, the country. First of all, to do a yagya, you have to have flat land, right? You can't do a yagya on a hill, right? Flat land is required. Desha, Kala. The best time to do a yagya is spring, right? Or in this time maybe summer. In India, springtime is the best. India में अगर हम इसी महीना में यज्ञ करते हैं ना, धूप काफी है. There's a lot of heat. अच्छा. फिर there are so many items that you need to have stock of. घी चाहिए, लकड़ी चाहिए, केला चाहिए. You need so many things like this. And then you need Brahmanas who know mantras. They know rituals. They know the priests. Right? And then how to set up the fire. Kiss devta ka mantrana dena hai. Which demigods do we call? Which type of yagya do we do? What type of performance? What type of fruit do we get from the yagya? All of this has been mentioned. Desha Kala Pritak Davyam Mantra Tantra Dvijagyaya. You need all these things. Then Devata, who's the Yajamanas? Yajaman Kon hai? Who is the sponsor? Right? Chakratur Dharmas Yanmaya. All these things have to be done. But yet all these things, Ye Yanmaya, these things are actually all ultimately for the satisfaction of Krishna. देश काल भगवान के लिए है ये सब चीजें. तो अगर भगवान के लिए हम नहीं करते हैं तो then what is the use? But what was the problem? Tam Brahma Paramam Sakshat Bhagavan Adhokshajam. This person, Vahi Bhagavan Tam Brahma Paramam. This is the highest manifestation of Brahm. Shakshad Bhagavan hai. Shakshad Bhagavan tum. Vahi Bhagavan hai. This is directly the Supreme Lord. And he is beyond the senses. Adhokshajam. That person who always stays above our senses, right? Our material senses. That person is Bhagavan. You cannot force Bhagavan that you come into my senses. You can't force him. But if by your display of bhakti, if he becomes pleased, agar Bhagavan reach gaye, Thakur ji reach gaye, to apne aap swayam aa jayenge. Right? Into your senses. It's a up-down system, not a down-up system. Right? So it's a simple example for the youngsters over here, right? Is you can't force your parents to spend money on you. Yeah, simple example. It's an up-down system. If your parents want to spend money on you, they will spend that money on you. But you can't force them. In fact, sometimes the more children force their parents, the more the parents after some time don't want to give it. अगर बच्चे कहेगा चाहिए 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 चाहिए, हाँ, धोती खींच रहा है, कुर्ता खींच रहा है, साड़ी खींच रहा है, सब कुछ खींच रहा है, पॉकेट वॉलेट खींच रहा है, दे दो दे दो दे दो दे दो, माँ बाप शायद नहीं देंगे, right? They get fed up, नहीं देना, get out of here, right? चुप. So then how do you win the favor of your parents? By serving, isn't it? When the mother or father sees that the child is just automatically doing so many things to serve, सेवा कर रहे हैं बहुत अच्छी तरह से, धर्म कर रहे हैं बहुत अच्छी तरह से, they're studying hard, they're working hard, they're speaking to the parents nicely, they're speaking to society nicely, then at that time, then the parents automatically want to say, what do you want? I'll get you anything. आज तुम्हारा birthday है, जो चाहिए मांगो. Right? Obviously within the parents' affordability, लेकिन ठाकुर जी तो बहुत अमीर है भाई. हाँ? Thakur ji is the, the richest of the rich. Hmm? So, but the problem was these Brahmanas, Manushya Drishtya, because these Brahmanas were of a very lower consciousness, they saw Krishna as a Manushya. Manushya Drishtya. Dushpragya, their intelligence was baffled. Their intelligence was low. Dush, matlab dushit tha. Bigad gaya tha. It was messed up. So Dushpragya and Martyamano, they understood him to be just a mortal person. They thought to themselves, if he's hungry, he must be a mortal person. Bhagwan thodi na usko bhuk lagti hai. And therefore, na mein re. They didn't have any regard for him. So, why is the word duspragya used? Is because if you see any ceremony, even if it's a karma kanda ceremony, if you see in the marriage ceremony, there's some mantra, Om Bhagavan Pundari Kaksha, these are all Om Hare, these are all mantras. They have Hari, Pundari Kaksha. ये सब Vishnu Bhagavan का नाम है. So even marriage ceremonies, which are there just to unite a couple, right? It's a man desiring to be with a woman, but yet Bhagavan's name is there. So every karma kandik ritual has Bhagavan's name in it. Achyutanam Bhagavan. And what we're doing is we're saying all these mantras. Idam te Vishnaya Vishnave, idam te Vishnave, idam te Krishnaya, idam namama. Idam te Vishnave. This belongs to Vishnu. Put the ghee in, right? Idam namama. This doesn't belong to me. Ye to mera nahi hai. Kiska hai? Bhagavan Vishnu. This belongs to him. Idam namama. It's not mine. I'm offering it. Right? So this is how you're offering it. You're offering ghee to the fire, but then at the same time, when the Lord himself is coming and saying, can I have some food? Nahi. So nahi dena hai tumko. So then what do you want to do? I'd rather put ghee in the fire. I'd continue putting ghee in the fire and having your name. Right? So it's the equivalent from Shukadev Goswami's point of view. It was the equivalent that you're cooking food for your family. You're making all this nice, so many nice paneer dishes and samosa, kachori, laddu, ye sab bana rahe hai. Right? For who? For your child. And then when your child says, Mama, I'm hungry, she's like, no, I'm cooking. Right? Main khana bana rahi hu. And she said, ha, mere liye bana rahi ho na, ab tayar hai to mujhko khilao. And she says, no. Right? I'm just cooking. I'm making it for the oven. मैं oven के लिए बना रही हूँ, हाँ? मैं चूल्हा के लिए बना रही हूँ खाना. Right? What's the point? So then text 12, na te yad om iti prachur na neti cha parantapa gopa nirasha pratyeta tata uchuhu Krishna Ramayo. Now, parantapa. Hey Parikshit Maharaj. Shukadev Goswami says, oh Parikshit Maharaj, Parantapa, जो दूसरे लोग को ताप देने वाले परीक्षित महाराज, अगर तुम होते ये ब्राह्मणों के सामने, if it was you who was in front of these brahmanas, you would have punished them for their act. क्योंकि तुम दूसरे लोग को, क्योंकि तुम राजा हो, ये परंतपा का मतलब है. So Parikshit Maharaj was listening and he was nodding his head, ha. But Parikshit Maharaj also cautioned him कि भाई ब्राह्मणों को लेकिन कभी नुकसानी नहीं पहुंचना चाहिए किसी के द्वारा. You should never hurt a Brahmin. Remember what happened the last time you put a snake on Shamik Rishi's head? क्या हुआ? right? इसलिए तुम यहाँ बैठे हो, right? That's why you're sitting over here hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. इसलिए ब्राह्मणों से कभी गुस्सा नहीं करना चाहिए. So then Parikshit Maharaj was looking at him कि क्या करना चाहिए? What should I do then? He goes, suno. Nate yad om iti prachur. Because they didn't say om, they didn't say yes. Na neti. And they didn't say no either. They did the worst thing. They ignored him. They ignored the cowherd boys. देखो कृष्ण लीला में अगर आप देखें तो जब भगवान ने गोवर्धन उठाया और इंद्र ने ये संवर्तक को बुलाया और कितना बारिश हुआ, so much rain came on the whole of Braj, right, trying to destroy everything. So in the end, when Indra realized that what have I done, he came with Surabhi and he was so ashamed of himself. He said, you go forward and you ask for forgiveness and then I'll come. And Krishna had a very frank conversation with Surabhi, right? He said, Maya te kari maghavan, makha bhanga anugrinataha. Makha bhanga anugrinataha. Mam anusmritya nityam mattanendra shriyam vrisham. So what does that shlok mean? Krishna says to him that Maya te kari Maghavan. Maghavan is one of Indra's names. By the way, I have done this entire Leela. This entire thing that you're seeing, Maya te kari. हमने किया है, हमने ये करी है. Maya te kari, Maghavan, O Indra. Makha bhanga anugranita. I stopped your fire sacrifice that the Brajvasis were doing to you, right? For what reason? Anugranita. To show special mercy to you. Why? Because mam anusmritrya nityam. Because my desire is that my devotees think of me always in a favorable way. Anusmritya. Anu means in a favorable way. Right? Even if you think of Krishna in an unfavorable way, as long as you think of him constantly, it's okay. Iska koi praman hai? Yes. Because even Yudhishthir Maharaj at the sacrifice of Shishupal, he got confused that Shishupal was an enemy and yet Krishna cut off his head and Shishupal's soul went into Krishna's body. So Yudhishthir Maharaj to Thakur ji ke paas gaya and bolo, ye kya ho raha hai? Narad Muni ke paas gaye. Thakur ji samne hai, fir bhi Narad ji se puche. So he asked Narad ji, what is happening? Shishupal was Krishna's biggest enemy. So how did this happen that his soul became liberated? This comes in the first chapter of the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the title is that Krishna is equal to everybody. So, dekho, Ripo Santa Api Tulya Drishtim. Right? That's the first verse of the Nagapatani Katha. The first verse says, Nyaya hi danda api, Nyaya hi danda krita kilbish asmin. Aapne jo kiya hai Bhagavan, the Nagapatanis, these are the Dvija Patnis, the Nagapatanis are going to Krishna and saying, Nyaya hi danda, whatever you have done to Kaliya, because Krishna killed Kaliya, he cruciated him. Right? In order to get his ghamand out, in order to get his poison out, he was stepping on every single hood and he was pouncing. And he was pouncing in such a glorious way. As the Indra and all of the demigods and the Gandharvas were together in orchestra, they were going, yeah, Tagur Gurta Din. And as soon as it would hit Din, Krishna would go Tagur Gurta Din. On another Din, ek bhat jata se. Right? This is mentioned by Sanatan Goswami. Tagur Gurta Din, this one. Yeah, Tagur Gurta Din. This one was breaking, this one was breaking. Do bhag mein phat jata. Right? And still, there was vomit coming out. First there was blood coming out, then the poison came out. And imagine what would happen to a wife if she saw her husband going through this. But the first things the Naga Patnis would do, they said that Nyaya hi danda. Whatever you've done, Nyaya hai, yeah, this is justice. Ye danda tumne diya hai. This punishment, Nyaya, is justice. Krita, he has done. Kilbish, usne bahut paap kiya hai. Krita kilbish asmins. And he says, Tava avatar khala nigrahaya. Your whole avatar is, the point is khala, those people whose mind is contaminated, nigrahaya. Nigrahaya doesn't mean always to kill them. It means to remove the tendency to sin. Kaliya ko maar nahi diya tha Thakur ji ne. But he completely broke him into shreds, Krishna, while dancing. Never has anyone danced before like this, and never will anyone dance like this. ऐसे कोई मंच आज तक नहीं बना. Doesn't matter how many stages you go to in this universe. You can go to the biggest concerts. You know, I sometimes like to keep up with like modern just information. So, you know, when I'm talking to various people, I can put things in context. तो कभी-कभी modern लोग के साथ भी बात कर लेता हूँ. So, you know, I was just, something came up on my social media feed, and it was saying the highest concerts in the world that have totaled millions of, so there was someone, Taylor Swift, $1 billion, right? This person, U2, Coldplay, 700 million, da 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 da. But all we can say is, आज तक ऐसे कोई stage नहीं बना जिसके ऊपर कोई जहरीला सांप हो, जिसके पास हजारे फण हो, 101 main heads, and then thousands of smaller heads. Each one of them were coming to try and get Krishna at one point. Yeah, but हमारे ठाकुर जी तो ताना तीता दीदी था ऐसे करके सिर फट जाता था. Nataraj. There's even a beautiful backstory to how that happened, which one day I'll share with you. Why did Krishna dance on such a stage? Right? Did he just do it for Kaliya? But someone whose name I won't mention, it begins with an R and ends with Adha Rani. Okay? That person instigated Krishna to do a dance, right? Which has never happened before. But there's a reason, there's a whole backstory. But the whole point is that Krishna did such a dance like that, but in the process of dancing, Kaliya ka sir phat gaya. And then they were saying, Repo Santa Api Tulya Drishtim. This is the point I wanted to make. That in Krishna's eyes, there is no difference between friend and enemy. Repo Santa. Repo means an enemy and Santa means a friend. Right? Repo Santa Api Tulya. You look at them, your drishti is the same. So, it's the same principle over here. Maya te kari maghavan makha bhanga anugrinataha. Mam anusmritya nityam. I want you to always remember me favorably. And in the 7th canto, Yudhishthir Maharaj was asking him, what is this a very nice favor that Krishna has done on Shishupal? We understood that if someone is an enemy of Krishna, Krishna patakte hai usko, sends them. But look at the absolute purnata dekho Thakur ji ki. Look at how complete Krishna is. That when Narad Muni was asked this question, Narad Muni gave an amazing insight into how Krishna's mind works. So he says, Gopyo kamad bhayad kamsa. Dvesha chedya adiyo nripaha. So he says, Gopyo kamad. Do you know, by the way, do you know how the gopis have attained Krishna? Not all of them, some of them. We have to go deep into these two words. Gopyo kamad, right? Which I won't do today. But some gopis attained Krishna simply by thinking that what an attractive male he is. Apne kaam se Bhagwan ko jeet liya. Gopyo kamad. So then how did Kans get Krishna? Bhayad kamsa. Just by fearing Krishna. Bhagwan se dar karke usne Krishna ko pa liya. Kans was so scared of Krishna, so scared, that he used to, jab chawal khane ke liye baithte the na, yeah, he used to think that Hiranyakashipu came out from Nrsimhadev came out from a pillar. What if Vishnu comes out from this mound of rice right now? Bhat se nikal gaye to kya karenge aap? Right? So then suddenly he didn't want to eat that rice. Then he used to sometimes look out the window and think, what if he comes through the window? So sometimes he would knock on the door of his own door and he would say, Are Dwarpalo, hai ho na? And they would say, Ji Huzur. Huzur ta nahi. Ji Raja Ji hai hum. Right? Yes, we're here. Acha. And then he would still lock it from the inside. So much fear Kans had of Krishna. So Bhayat Kamsa. Chaitya Adeyo Dveshad Chaitya Adeyo Nripaha. Chaidi, there was a kingdom called Chaidi. The king was Shishupal. And Dveshad means enmity. Shishupal hated Krishna to the point of always thinking of him. This hatred was not like a normal type of hatred. Kisi ko dekho gali de do aur fir chale jao. Nahi. Shishupal used to wake up in the morning and think of Krishna, but in a very negative way. Afternoon, before he's eating his meal, swear at him. Sometimes he would call all the kings, Ajao, dinner ke liye. What's the festival? Koi festival nahi hai. Wo Krishna hai na, usko gali dena hai saath mein. Ajao, dinner ke liye. He used to gather with all the kings and he used to just swear at him. Because he used to envy. Why? Because of all things, Krishna took Rukmini. Right? Of course, Rukmini appealed to Krishna. And then he says, Sambandad Vrishnaya. Sambandad Vrishnaya. These Vrishnis, the Yadus, they attain Krishna because they think Krishna is their relative. Sambandad. And then Yuyam Sneha, Vayam Bhaktya. All of you, Pandavas, you have attained Krishna because you love him. And Vayam and us, devotees, we've attained him because of our sadhana. You don't sit there chanting 16 rounds a day. Sri Yudhishthira Maharaj wouldn't sit there doing 16 rounds a day. Yudhishthira Maharaj didn't do some great sadhana. Yeah, he must have done some sadhanas, but his mukhya sadhana, what was Yudhishthira Maharaj's main sadhana? When Krishna would leave for Hastinapur, he'd get all of the Pandavas together, Draupadi together, that I miss him so much. He goes, we have to bring him back somehow. And so they'd make an excuse, they'd write a letter there and then, that Nakul ekdam bimar ho gaya. You know, we said he should lie. Satya nirtabhyam jiveta. You should lie and tell the truth, and this is how you should live. They would lie. Jhoot bolte the Thakur ji ko, Nakul ko ekdam, he's very sick, please come. That didn't work, right? Bhim's very sick. Then sometimes they'd even slide in, you know, Arjun is in danger. Tumaja. So as soon as Krishna left, within a few days, they would say, please come, because viraha ka tap, the separation is something that they could not handle. So, I sidetracked a little bit, but the whole point is that by they were saying, He Parantapa, Shukadev Goswami was saying that you who casts enemies and causes them to experience pain, don't get too angry. Although they didn't say yes and although they didn't say no, don't worry, you'll see what Krishna will do now. Gopa Nirasha, Gopas became completely, they lost all hope. Nirash ho gaye the. Pratyeta, they went back. Thakur ji ke paas vapas gaye. Tatha uchuhu Krishna Ramayor. Now they told Krishna and Ram everything that they needed to say. So first thing, they went back, the cowherd boys. They were walking back, and they were arguing with each other. Not arguing literally, but they were just talking. You know how boys do. One said, you know, I told you we shouldn't have gone there. Another one was saying, no, but how could we have said no? Krishna was sending us. You know, Krishna always has a plan, and whatever he does somehow comes out right. And then a third one was saying, no, do you know, even though we should have gone, we should have done this. Aise karna chahiye, tab chawal milta. Everyone was giving their opinion. They were causing a big racket. One thing about Brajvasis is Brajvasis don't do anything softly. If anyone wants in their life, if anyone wants a very nice type of a beautiful, smooth type of devotion, आप वैकुंठ चले जाओ. सच में विष्णु के भगवान के पास चले जाओ. Very nice kind of smooth bhakti, silky, you know, you're walking on clouds. मतलब सब कुछ ठीक चल रहा है, हृदय में भक्ति है. विष्णु भगवान एकदम मंद मुस्कान से, मंद स्वर से बात करेंगे आपसे, प्रेम भरी वाणी से बात करेंगे. He'll talk to you very nicely. You'll say, हाँ प्रभु जी, हमारे हृदय में आपके लिए सिर्फ प्रेम है, हमको कुछ सेवा दीजिए. Vishnu will say, please just do the service of boiling some milk with Lakshmi, and then you go beautifully with Lakshmi, you boil some milk for the Lord, there is bhakti in your heart. If you want that type of bhakti, आप वैकुंठ चले जाओ. But if you want bhakti which is like this, मतलब उधम मचा के अगर भक्ति चाहते हैं ना, तब ब्रज में चले जाओ. ब्रज में ऐसे नहीं चलता है, गाली चलता है ज्यादा. Right? In Braj, there is a lot of swearing. Sach mein keh raha hu. It took me years to understand a little bit about Braj Bhakti. Not that I can understand it fully, but I have seen Braj Vasis and I have understood a little bit about Braj Bhakti. Gali de karke Thakur ji ko reachte hain.
ठाकुर जी बुलाते दाढ़ी के.
हाँ, चुप हो जा दाढ़ी के. Right? Braj Vasis are like this. This a little darshan into Braj, since we explained this topic. After one time in the Damodar Leela, Thakur ji band gaye the. Yeah, ये सब कथाएं हमने गुरु महाराज के दिव्य वाणी से सुना है, right? Not making anything up. So when Krishna was tied, right? इसलिए दामोदर नाम है उसका. So someone they tied Krishna. So Balram wasn't there immediately. वो पहले तो नहीं थे वहाँ. So then, at first, some of the cowherd boys came, and to make Krishna feel better, one of them took out a sweet, right? And he said, "Tum ye kha lo." He took out a sweet, makhan thoda, misri, kha lo. So Krishna took it, and he goes, "Kahan se mila ye?" He goes, "Abhi abhi chori karke aaye. Sab gopiyon yahan hai na, to uske ghar mein ghus karke humne chori karke hi aa rahe." Right? This is how naughty these boys were. That because they saw that all the gopis yahan tamasha dekh rahe, they're looking at all the drama happening over here, so then they went back into the gopis' house. The same gopi that was there, they thought that is gopi ko to dhyan nahi hai na, yahan dhyan hai uska. They're looking over here, chalo chori karte hai uske ghar mein. They ran, took the makhan, and then they presented it in front of Krishna. Now Balram wasn't there. So then Balram came. So first he looked and he said, यहाँ क्या हो रहा है? And then they said, मैया ने उसको बांध दिया आज. क्यों? थोड़ी हरकती की उसने. He's done some wrong things. माखन फोड़ा, मटकी फोड़ा उसने, बंदरों को खिलाए. They spoke a few things. Balaram got upset. Bhagavad आवेश में आ गए. Right? In the sense that he started coming into his, swarup. Right? As if Bhagavan Swarup. It's called Bhagavad Avesh. So he stood outside the door of his own house and he started saying, Kisne kiya ye? Who has done this? Kisne bandha usko? Kiski himmat ye hai कि कृष्ण को बांध सके? बोलो, बाहर निकल आओ. Right? He started speaking like this. So Yashoda Mai heard. So she came out and she goes, कौन शोर मचा रहा है? Who's making noise here? Balram goes, मैं शोर मचा रहा हूँ. I'm making noise. किसने बांधा उसको? So then Yashoda Mai asked, hey bhai, whoever may have tied him, पहले तो ये तो बताओ कि तुम कौन हो? Yeah, forget who tied him. Who are you? Tell me who you are. मैं अनंत शेष हूँ. मैं लक्ष्मण हूँ. मैं राम हूँ. जो धरती को पकड़ता है, the person who upholds this universe, I am that person. The person who can destroy all planetary systems, I am that person. the person, and in one stare मैं पूरा ब्रज को जला सकता हूँ, अभी अभी जला दूंगा, अभी फूक दूंगा. I'll just give one blow the whole of Braj. So Yashoda Mai looked at him and he goes, तो तुम तो भगवान के अवतार हो ना? He goes, हाँ, हूँ मैं. So she goes, अगर तुम अवतार हो तो वो भी तो कुछ होंगे ना? Yeah, if you're an avatar, then he must be some sort of an avatar in your dictionary. Go on, tell me. वो तो साक्षात हरि है, वो आदि पुरुष है. Right? He's speaking the truth. He's the Adi Purush. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one can mess with him. He is the cause of all causes. Right? He must have thrown a few Bhagavad Gita shloks in there. Who knows? Bhagavad Gita to वो तो विनोद में बात किया, Bhagavad Gita बाद में आया. Right? He put all these indications about Krishna's personality. So Yashoda Mai goes, वाह वाह वाह, तुम दोनों की जय हो. Right? Now she goes, अब निकलते हो या छड़ी निकालो? Right? She took out a stick. She goes, are you running or should I whack you one? So Balram ji तुरंत भाग गए. इतना ही सुन के बलराम जी भाग गए.
बोले सारे अवतार मेरे घर में आने हैं.
हाँ भाई तो हाँ हमने सुना है. हाँ she said that. कि क्या चाहते हैं? हाँ कि सब ये तो at least कम से कम ये तो बताओ कि सारे अवतार मेरे घर में क्यों पैदा हुए और घर नहीं है ब्रज में. हाँ अब निकलते हो या मारू है? So Balram ji भाग गए वहाँ से. This is Braj Leela. So then बाद में बलराम जी आए. Right? So first he ran away कि अभी पिटूंगा. So first he ran away. बाद में आकर then he looked at Krishna and he goes, sorry, I really tried. बहुत कोशिश किया मैं. Fail हो गया मैं. Right? तो अब दोनों भगवान के अवतार रोने लगे. Those two supreme personality of God began to cry. हाँ बेचारे दोनों. So this is Braj Leela. Braj Leela, the way the gopis scold Krishna. गाली देते हैं ठाकुर जी को. एक बार ठाकुर जी गोपियों के पास गए कि चलो let's have a wrestling match. Today I'm in the mood for wrestling. So first one gopi said, अरे कुश्ती लड़ना है ना तो जाओ अपने गोप सखाओं के साथ लड़ो. He goes, नहीं, आज तुम्हारे लोग के सामने लड़ना है. तुम्हारे लोग के साथ लड़ना है हमको. Right? मैं दिखाऊंगा what wrestling really is. So then Lalita looked at some of the sakhis and she said, all right, tie your waist belts tight. चलो करते हैं. ये श्याम सुंदर को भी दिखाते हैं कि हम गोपी क्या चीज है. So they had a wrestling match, Krishna and the gopis. Krishna versus the gopis. And Krishna expanded into one form for every gopi. After the wrestling match, Krishna was doing this. He was trying to find his way. कि मैं हूँ कहाँ? Where am I? One eye was black. टेढ़े हो गए थे. Right? There were bruises all over his body. ये ब्रज लीला है. कभी सुना है ऐसे चीज वैकुंठ में? वैकुंठ में there is no such things like this. Even जब ब्रजवासी वैकुंठ गए थे ना, Krishna took all of them to Vaikuntha. Right? वो तो सारे उधम मचा करके जा रहे थे. ये सब वैकुंठवासी द्वारपाल देख रहे थे कि ये कहाँ से आ गए. ये सब लोग उधम मचा के they were all going and banging their drums, and you know how Brajvasis do in their very very simple way. अरे चलो चलो काना काना कानो चलो चलो. And all the द्वारपाल्स of Vaikuntha कि ये नीच लोग कहाँ से टपक गए? कहाँ से आए हैं? धरती से आए हैं? कहाँ से आए? Right? So Braj has a sweetness to it. So the Gopas came, they were making so much noise. Udham macha ke aa rahe the. Krishna and Balram were in a cottage at that time. They were in some white cottage which Vrinda Devi had made on the banks of the Yamuna. This is mentioned by Jiva Goswami. And then Krishna saw that ye to bahut awaaz karke aa rahe hai. So he didn't want Balram to hear because he knew that if Balram had heard the whole thing, he would have gotten really upset. So he ran. He ran to first find out what is happening. So, tad upakarnya bhagavan prahasya jagadishwara vyajahara punargopan darshayan lokikim gatim. Tad upakarnya, Bhagavan ne, when he went there, he heard everything very carefully. Bhagavan, even though he knows everything, he heard everything, not that I know everything. Batao, tell me exactly what happened. So they were saying, we went, we offered our Dandavata obeisances, we got up, we looked at the Brahmanas, we said very loudly, please hear Shrinuta, Shrinuta. Hmm? We are the order carriers of Krishna, and we have been sent here by Balram, Ramano Choditan. We've been sent here. Can you please give us something to eat? We're hungry. We gave all the reasons. Pura bataya. Krishna told, the cowherd boys told Krishna everything. And so Krishna heard very in detail what had happened. But ultimately, this was not Krishna's aim. His aim was not to get food from the Brahmanas. In fact, if he got food from the Brahmanas, the whole Leela would have been spoiled. Isn't it? So what he did was, in fact, if the Brahmanas would have given him any food, he would have been surprised. It would have shocked him. So the cowherd boys, they were flustered, they were hungry, they were frustrated. So then what did Krishna do when he heard everything? Bhagavan ekdam hase. He laughed out so loudly. Why did he laugh out? Because Bhagavan achut hai. He is infallible. Bhagavan doesn't have discontent in him. अगर आप भगवान को कुछ देते हैं, वो रीझ जाते हैं. लेकिन नहीं भी देते हैं, he is still very happy. Whether you give the Lord or don't, he's still okay. He's still very much in his own swarup. He's full of bliss. So Balram at this stage could figure out something was happening. Even though he's from a distance, Balram also has bionic ears, transcendentally bionic ears. So he could hear everything. So when he was hearing everything, he got upset. कि ये ब्राह्मण होते कौन? अभी दिखाता हूँ. But still, he thought that no, Krishna must have a plan. So until Krishna says that let's do something, Balram wasn't that inspired. He said, let's just see what Krishna does. So he's just quietly just waiting to see what would happen. So, as soon as they met Krishna, Krishna said, what happened? He goes, अरे कानो, पहले से बताया था, नहीं जाना चाहिए था हमको. We told you, we shouldn't have gone. So then here Srila Sridhar Goswami says that when one doesn't get something, one shouldn't lose hope. In fact, when there is failure in a particular task, one should just simply laugh at their destiny. Oh, it didn't happen. Ha 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 ha. Chal, koi baat nahi. No problem. Has karke move on. And then Krishna says, a beggar should keep going on, whether he is successful or whether he fails. Just like, in any place, you hear, sir, do you have 2 pounds? Radhe Radhe. 2 rupees mil sakta hai. Hare Krishna, 2 rupees mil sakta hai. Many people say no. They just say, okay, Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe. They move on. Just keep moving on. Krishna was teaching them. Darshayan lokikim gatim. This is how a beggar should be. Lokik, Riti said, this is how things should happen. But at the same time, Krishna was laughing at his illusory energy. That ye to Brahman ban gaye, fir bhi maya mein hai. Look how Krishna's illusory energy works, that one reaches the highest status of the system that Krishna has created. Right? Chatur varnyam maya shishtam guna karma vibhagasha. This system that Krishna has created of Chatur varnyam, right? The varnashram system, 4 varnas and 4 ashrams. Krishna has made it. But look how it is that even the highest, the Brahmanas, could not recognize Bhagavan. It's not like they'd done some great sinful activities in their life, but they were not of the standard where they could Bhagavan ko samajh sake. They couldn't understand the Lord. So he's laughing that just see, they're supposed to be spiritual, but really what is spiritual, usko kuch pata nahi ke adhyatmik cheez kya hai. They don't really know what is spirituality. And this also then Krishna was laughing because he was his laugh indicated that bhakti is more in women than men. Right? Not in this room. Yeah? But we're speaking generally. Yeah? When often in India or any place, when katha is going on, bhakti is going on, I've seen this, right, in India and otherwise, the women's row is full right to the back. Right? And sometimes the man's row is just quarter. प्रभु जी कथा में आ रहे हो ना? आप प्रभु जी आएंगे लेकिन थोड़ा लेट से आएंगे. अच्छा. प्रभु जी कथा 6 बजे शुरू होने वाली है। हाँ प्रभु जी हम 8 बजे तक पहुंच जाएंगे।
प्रसाद के समय पहुंच जाएंगे।
हाँ?
प्रसाद के समय
पहुंच जाएंगे। आप बिल्कुल टेंशन मत लो, प्रसाद के समय पहुंच जाएंगे।
यूनिवर्सल है प्रभु, ये ट्रूथ
Universal. Because bhakti requires a softness. Bhakti is like a rose, right? It's a melting energy, and men they're not so emotionally blossomed like women are. Women, you'll see in Katha so many times some beautiful things come out in Katha, right? And it's not that men don't feel emotion, they do. But as soon as you speak something beautiful, like there's one Leela which sometimes I recite, and sometimes Krishna gives me the ability, but the Leela itself is so moving that when someone hears it, some emotion, not because I'm saying it, right? I'm as dry as a bone inside my heart, I'll tell you that. But the thing is that when the Leela itself is so beautiful, and if you look towards the women, they're all crying, sab log ro rahe, right? And the men, you can see a little bit of emotion is there, but the women are just, bawling their eyes out. It's the nature of men. Men like to be a little bit more logical. Men give importance to the wrong things sometimes. But if a man comes into the shelter of bhakti, then there's no difference between man and woman. If a man comes under the shelter of bhakti, तो आदमी भी स्त्री बन जाती है. Right? This is a fact. So Krishna thought, he laughed. Harisuri says he laughed that people's heart did not melt upon hearing my name, the Brahmanas. They did not feel happy by seeing guests, and they did not give food in charity. They did not give food to little children. Iska matlab hai, uska hriday ganda hai. Their heart is rotten. Only rotten hearts can be like this. वो तो ब्राह्मण मतलब कहने की बात एक है, but they have rotten hearts, these Brahmins. One time I spoke this katha in Mauritius in a temple which was run by Brahmanas. And I spoke this katha, and I was just saying whatever Guru Maharaj ke jo Srimukh se jo nikla na, maine bas usko hi dohraya. I just simply said what my Guru said. But at the end of the katha, I got a message that those Brahmins want a word with you. They're very unhappy with you. मैंने बोला ठीक है भाई. But I said at the same time, अगर बहस करना है तो शुकदेव गोस्वामी से बहस करो. लेकिन for myself, I will not argue. But for Shukadev Goswami to present his views, we'll sit right now and no problem. Yeah, I will present what Shukadev Goswami's version is. So I said उसको message भेजो कि अगर शास्त्र अर्थ पे बात करना है, वाद विवाद करना है तो चलो, right? फिर कोई मैसेज नहीं है इसका. So बस भगवान की हंसी से ये सब बात निकल रही है. तो शास्त्र यही कहता है कि अगर हाँ कहना है तो जल्दी बोल दो, अगर ना कहना है तो भी जल्दी बोल दो. So the Brahmanas completely lost their ability. And Krishna's thought here, bhakti is in the heart of my devotee. Bhakti jo hai, it resides in the heart, and that heart bursts with emotion. वो हृदय जो है ना भक्ति से द्रवित हो जाता है. It bursts with emotion. But if these Brahmins know everything but they don't follow my devotees, how will they ever experience bhakti bhav? So Krishna, thinking all these things and laughing at the same time, he said, don't worry, aap chinta mat karo. Don't worry at all. The Brahmanas have said no to you. I promise you, you will get even more from their wives. The cowherd boy said, what? Kya? फिर से? अरे कान्हो, एक चीज तुम अच्छी तरह से समझ लो आज, कि जैसे पति होता है ना, वैसी पत्नी. एक दूसरे में कोई अंतर नहीं होता है. जैसे पति सोचता है ऐसे पत्नी सोचती है. There is no difference between a husband and wife. When they live together for a long time, they even begin to look like each other, and they even begin to think like each other. Right? So then Krishna said, सुनो सुनो, you भीख मांगने की कोई जरूरत ही नहीं, you don't need to beg, right? Just say that Krishna is here and just watch what happens. अब सिर्फ देख लो, हमारा नाम एक बार पुकारो कि ठाकुर जी आ गए हैं बलराम के साथ, फिर देखो क्या होता है. Just see what happens. So गोप सखा बोले, अच्छा सच में सिर्फ आपके नाम बोलने से, because सरल है ना, you know, right? If they argue, but as soon as you tell them something nice, they'll be like, अच्छा really? हाँ, अच्छा, तो सिर्फ नाम बोलने से काम हो जाएगा? Krishna said, yes, just say my name and see what happens. So then the Gopas became confident. They said, Krishna, sure. Krishna said, yes, just go and see what happens. Just have to say your name? Yes, just have to say my name. Acha. Mam gyapatayo patnibhya sa sankarshanam agatam. Dasyanti kamam annam vasnigdhamai usitadhya. This is a very beautiful and easy shlok. Mam gyapayata. Just usko gyan de do कि मैं माम आया हूं. किसको? पत्नीभ्य, क्योंकि it's in plural. पत्नीभ्य, you say to the wives कि मैं आया हूं. Alone? नहीं, सा संकर्षण, मैं संकर्षण के साथ आई हूं. संकर्षण मतलब जो आकर्षति संग, संग आकर्षति इति संकर्षण. जो संग में आकर्षण करते, that person who draws people into his association or into Krishna's association, that person is known as sanga akarshana, sankarshan. Agatam, we have arrived. If you say this much, dasyanti, they will give you, denge, dasyanti kamam annam, however much food you desire. Kamam, jitana chahte ho, whatever your wish is. Kamam annam. Cowherd boy said, Q denge. Why will they give us everything or however much we desire? Snigdhamai usita dhiya. Uska jo dhi, uska jo intelligence, their mind and their intelligence, ushita is fixed, mai, in me. So, because also Krishna had etiquette, Bhagwan ke paas sadachar hai. Krishna has etiquette. So in front of Balaram, he didn't want to reveal his feelings about the wives of the Brahmanas. Ek tarah se, from a social point of view, this is not a done thing, right? Because Krishna has relationships. So Balaram, dono ras mein hai. Ek bade bhai ke ras mein hai, and at the same time, sakhya ras mein hai aur vatsalya ras mein bhi hai. Dono mishrit hai. कभी कभी वो एक माता पिता जैसे बन जाते हैं बलराम जी, और कभी कभी सखा जैसे खेलते हैं ठाकुर जी के साथ. Sometimes Balaram shares a relationship, parental and as a friend as well. So then Balaram was still hearing, and because these women loved Krishna and they thought of Krishna as their husband, Krishna knew this, and so he thought, I don't want them to hear. I don't want Balaram to hear. So he went to the cowherd boys and he said, Tum vapas jao. And then there's a very interesting thing here. He says, Gyapayata patnibhya. He doesn't say Brahmana patnibhya. Sanskrit mein jadoo hai. Hamare Bhagavatam shlok mein jadoo hai. It will say some very specific things. If you just look at the second layer of the Bhagavatam shlokas, वो एक दूसरे चीज को रिवील करता है. Mam gyapayata. Go and reveal the truth patni ko. ठाकुर जी ये नहीं कह रहे हैं कि इनकी पत्नी को. He's just saying patni bhya. And Sanatan Goswami says here patni bhya का मतलब है मेरी पत्नी को तुम बोल दो. मतलब ठाकुर जी ने स्वीकार कर लिया है कि ये मेरी पत्नी है. देखो, look how Krishna, just like when Vibhishan, right? Before Vibhishan even came to Ramchandra practically, he had made him the king of Lanka. Bana diya na, Lanka ke Raja. So he said, Patni bhya, sa sankarshana. So when you read this another way, go and tell my wives that I have come, sa sankarshana, I have come to bring them into my association. Read it a different way, right? Mam gyapayata, explain to my wives that I have come to bring them into my association. Main aa gaya hu, agatam, sa sankarshana. Sankarshana can mean Balram, but plainly it can mean into one's association. Mere sang ke liye, main aaya hu mere patni ke liye. कोड में बात कर रहे हैं इनको, लेकिन हमारे ये भागवत अध्यापकों को, those people who read Bhagavatam and take ras in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam will be able to understand this, right? Just how a wife will keep feeding her husband until he is full. Dasyanti kamam annam va. Right? They will not stop feeding. If a husband says 3 rotis, kuch nahi hua 3 roti se, mujhko aur 5 chahiye. Right? Now, unless husband ko diabetes hai ya kuch bimari hai, the wife will keep making it. Right? So, one thing. Why did Krishna say this? Because Patni Bhya, he said, and the other reason was, he said, these women are not worth being married to these Brahmanas. It's not worth it. Main sach bolu, these Brahmanas are not worthy of being married to such elevated women. ये तो एक तरह से निकम्मे हैं, वेद कर रहे हैं ठीक है, हाँ, लेकिन आउटलाइन के ब्राह्मण हैं, और ये पत्नी जो है बहुत उच्च कोटि के है. This is what Krishna is saying. But the cowherd boy said, no, but we should tell them, बताना चाहिए ना कि तुम लोग भूखे हो, right? You and Balram are hungry. We should tell them that we're hungry. हम भूखे हैं, आप भूखे नहीं, हम भूखे. बताना चाहिए ना Krishna. Krishna said, बिल्कुल उसको बताओ मत. Please don't tell them that I am hungry. If they hear that I am hungry, they will enter into so much pain in their consciousness. If you say that I am hungry, their hearts will break. ये bhakti hai, right? Bhakti, when it matures, one thinks in terms which are extraordinary, right? Think about this. If a husband simply comes to the wife and says, I'm a bit hungry, yeah, wife will say, okay, 10-15 minute बैठो अभी बनाती हूँ. लेकिन उसका हृदय तो नहीं टूटता है ना. Yeah, the heart doesn't break. If a husband says, I'm hungry, the wife will say, okay, just wait patiently a few minutes. Yeah, the pizzas are coming, the burgers are coming, the dal sabji is coming, whatever it is, it's coming. But devotion takes a very unusual twist. Bhakti ek anokhi cheez hai. Bata diya कि Krishna bhuke hai, straight away, you know, the eyes start tearing up. My Lord is hungry. How? How is my Lord hungry? Why is he hungry? Why haven't I made anything for him? Right? This is how bhakti manifests itself. But then Krishna said, tell them that sa sankarshana. Make sure you tell them that I'm with Balaram so that they know how to act properly. Otherwise they'll just run. But then if my brother is there, and then they start saying all these things, but bade bhai ke samne aisa nahi bolna chahiye na. So Krishna is just very cleverly, he's warning them. But then the cowherd boy is saying, अगर पत्नी को पूछेंगे कि खाना चाहिए, ठीक है मान लिया कि वो आपसे बहुत प्रेम करती है, लेकिन ब्राह्मण तो वही होंगे ना. वो उसको रोक लेंगे. The husbands, the Brahmanas will block the women. They'll block their wives and say, no, you can't go. Krishna said, no. Mam usita dhiya. They will not be able to, no matter how much force these Brahmanas use. Their minds, their heart and their connection is completely in me, and they will open the floodgates of their devotion and you'll see. The Brahmanas won't be able to stop them. In fact, news may have already gotten to these women that some boys came and asked for some food for Krishna and Balram, and their husbands didn't say yes. This will disturb them. But then the cowherd boy said, अगर खाना नहीं बोलेंगे तो पता कैसे लगेगा that you are hungry? we should tell them, make it clear. If we just say Krishna is here and then they said, "Bahut acha hua, hamara pranam karna," right? But our main objective is food. Khana hai na, humko sabko. So kaise pata lagega? How will they know? So then he said, "Suno, आप सिर्फ बोलेंगे कि कृष्णा और बलराम, कृष्णा and Balram are here. As soon as you say this and they see that you look hungry, you look tired, you look thirsty, they will understand immediately because you are my friends. No matter what, these women will come to see me. You will see." And it's true, the wives were desperate to see Krishna. And so, in text 15, Gatva patani shalayam drishtva asina swa alankrite natva dvija satir gope prashrita idam abhruvan. The cowherd boy still said, okay, they were still 50-50. Should we go, should we not go? But because of Krishna's order, they went. Gatva patani shalayam. So they went to the women's quarters. Drishtva asina. They saw that the women were sitting swa alankrite. They decorated themselves. Yagya lagbhag khatam ho gaya tha. They in the patni shala, they had done their chores, they had cooked the food, and they were sitting there. Natva dvija satir. Satir means one who is chaste to her husband. Goper prashrita idam abhruvan. So when they arrived, first the cowherd boys took a route which was unseen. Ek aise marg usne chuna that the Brahmanas wouldn't be able to see them. So they took some sort of a back route. As soon as they arrived, the food was ready. Very high standard food, very high quality of food was ready. Then they were just sitting there, very well behaved. They were sitting there, they were finishing their chores, and they were immersed in Krishna Katha. Bahar kya ho raha hai? They had no idea. They were just immersed in Krishna Katha. And this Katha wasn't a sadhana. Koi sadhana nahi tha gopiyon ka, Dvija Patni ka. You know, we're listening, okay, Bhagavad Katha, there's a program, you know, every Sunday, every morning. This was natural Krishna Katha. Natural Krishna Katha was going on. So there was such a contrast between them. And so the word sati here means that sati doesn't mean they weren't chaste to the husbands. Nahin. वो ब्राह्मणों की सती नहीं थी, भगवान की सती थी. They were chaste to the Brahmanas, I mean to Krishna. What does that mean? The Lord's qualities had entered into their consciousness. भगवान के गुण उसके शरीर और मन में प्रवेश किए थे. This happens after long hearing of Krishna Katha, after long chanting, after purification. Generally speaking, it can happen very quickly as well. But generally speaking, after a good time of dhyayams, chirams, bhagavatams, jaranaya ravinda, for a long time one should hear Krishna Katha, it's mentioned. Bahut der se sunna chahiye, then it really enters into the consciousness, right? So it's like, I remember when I was younger, so but this is an example, not that anyone should follow it. So I remember one time I went to my father to speak with him about some business matter. So I went to my father, and in our house we have a room which is like from long ago, it was like a cinema room, a room just to watch movies, ek cinema ka room hai, right? So Pitaji baithe the, and he was watching this, what's it called? It's like what are they called one after the other? Like a soap?
Project?
Series. Yeah, a series. So it's called 24. Yeah, what happens in 24 hours. So I said, listen, I need to talk to you. He just goes, sit here. Better. He says, just sit here for 20 minutes He goes, then I'll talk to you. So I sat there and watched it. And then I asked him, I said, what's happening over here? And he goes, this is all to do with governments, agencies, terrorism, all of this is happening. So I said, okay. He goes, watch it, you'll like it. So I thought, all right, let me watch it for 20 minutes. 20 minutes ke liye maine dekha. So then at the end of it, because sub series jo hai na cliffhanger pe hi band hota hai. Huh? They never stop like, when you want it to stop. They stop just when you don't want it to stop. So you continue. So then I spoke to him about whatever I needed to talk to him about. Baat ho gaya, finished. Then he said to me, do you want to continue watching one more? I said, why not? So then I started, right? And I became machli ki tarah mein ban gaya, hooked, right? Hooked to the point where he was on the 6th series. I said, series number 1 de do humko, pehle se dekhna hai, right? And at night I would sit there, one after the other. In the 4 o'clock in the morning, yeah, I was sitting there like this, lal aankhein, still, ek aur ho jaye. Pata to chale, at least let me find out what's happened in the next bit. Eyes were red, I couldn't stay awake, I was tossing and turning, but I still wanted to see, right? But I remember this distinctly, right? In the beginning, there was this, like the same theme would come on, right? Before the thing started. And as I was sleeping, that whole thing entered into my consciousness. So as I was sleeping, mujhe lag raha hai main wo film mein. I am in the film. Things are happening to me. The terrorists are attacking me. I am saving the government. The government is trying to protect me. All these things were just happening, and I think it must have gone on for hours because I absorbed it so deeply into my consciousness. So the thing is, prakrit vastu ke agar saath ye agar ho sakta hai, if this can happen with material things, what to speak of that which is vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayana mulanam. Vastavam atra vastu, the real substance. Why can it not happen with that? And it can happen also, right? That when one is able to absorb the Srimad Bhagavatam katha of Krishna, and any katha, every katha of the Srimad Bhagavatam is powerful, not just necessarily Krishna katha, right? You can hear so many other stories, Ritrasura's prayers to Bhagavan, so many kathas you can hear. And sometimes just without you realizing, right, from nowhere, ek katha andar ghusti hai hamare hriday mein. Aur itna fir जोर से पकड़ लेती है हमको, and that's when you realize this is not me, this is mercy coming. And when that leela sits in your heart, then your remembrance. But you can't hear leela for say aaj hum 10 minutes sunenge, right? You have to hear intensely. Yeah, I was watching that series intensely like this. Everything I didn't want to miss something, rewind it. What happened there? What happened there? What did he say? Oh yeah. Okay. So in the same way, katha, right? I've seen sometimes, right? What to speak of other people? We're not here to criticize any, but I've seen myself. Sometimes I'm listening to katha at the same time. I'm like, oh, listen. Did you remember that thing? Okay, sorry, yeah. I'm listening to the katha at the same time. Then I'm thinking about something else. I'm listening to the katha. This is not absorption. Absorption kisko kehte hain? Yahan baith karke ekdam shanti se sunna. Make notes, right? Absorb things. This is real katha. Then hours later, it gets absorbed into the consciousness. Dhyayam chiram bhagavatam charanaravinda. Meditate for a long time. Then it enters. So when it entered into the consciousness of the wives, they were talking about it naturally, right? These qualities had entered. And then when the cowherd boys entered the Patani Shala, they realized, जो भगवान हमारे कृष्ण कान्हा जो कह रहे हैं ना, वो तो बिल्कुल सत्य है. ये जो स्त्री है, वो तो अलग ही वस्तु है. These women are something completely different. These wives of the Brahmanas are what Krishna said, they're different to their husbands. So they offered their respect, but they didn't do Dandavat because it's not etiquette. Dandavat you do to Brahmanas. But in their heart, they offered 1,000 obeisances to these women. Brahmano ko, they didn't want to, but they were forced to offer their obeisances. They felt obliged. Ki karna chahiye, Brahman hai. ऐसे उच्च कुल के ब्राह्मण हैं, चलो कर लेते हैं, भीख मांगना, we have to beg from these brahmanas, let's just do it. But with these women, it was natural. They wanted to offer not one but 1,000 obeisances. And they said, Nama vipra patnibhyo nibodata vacham sina iti vidura charata krishnena he sita vayam. Wives had time for Krishna Katha, husbands were busy. So they were sitting, then they had cleaned everything, they had decorated themselves, they were properly dressed up, exactly how women should be. And these wives were sitting with rings which had imprints of Krishna's feet on them. Thakur ji ke padchin jo tha, uske alankar mein, they had rings which had Krishna's imprints. So interestingly, the cowherd boys were still discussing strategy the entire way. अपने आप से बात कर रहे थे. What should we say? कैसे दंडवत करें ना करें? ऐसे करें, ऐसे करें. All this strategy was being discussed. As soon as they saw the wives of the Brahmanas, something in them told them, we don't need to do anything. बस प्रणाम करो. अपने हृदय से सब कुछ हो जाएगा. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, as soon as they said, Nama Viprapatnibhyo, we offer our obeisances to the Patnis, Nibhodata, please hear, wake up, Bodhata, right? Please put your attention, Vacham Sina. Please put your attention to our na words, Vacham Sina. अपने वचन, हमारे जो वचन है, उस पे ध्यान दो. Please listen to our words. Iti avidoro charata, not far from here, very close by. Charata. Krishna is herding the cowherd boys. Krishnena hesita bayam. And we are here on behalf of Krishna. As soon as they heard this, the ladies lost consciousness. They didn't say Krishna's hungry. They just said, Krishna, not far from here, Krishna is herding the cows. Yahan se bahut nazdeek. They lost their consciousness. So as soon as they lost their consciousness, the cowherd boys, because they're in their own, they thought, "Arey bhai, ye to murcha gayi? मतलब ये भी खाने नहीं देंगे, मतलब ये उसके पति की तरह है, उसने खाना नहीं दिया, उसने खाने, ये भी लोग खाना नहीं देंगे, अब हम क्या करेंगे भाई? What are we going to do? Even they fainted. Their husbands didn't give food. Even they won't give food. Another one said, "Ha, wo bhi kanjus, ye bhi kanjus." Right? They're both stingy. Gas charayan sa gopale sa ramaduram agata bhubukshitasya tasya annam sanugasya pradiyatam. The Brahmanas, they were in material slumber, and these wives were in spiritual slumber. No, they fainted. So the Gopas said, please give us your food. And they said it very loudly then. You see, so as soon as they lost consciousness, they said loudly, Gas charayan sa gopale, Krishna is here with his other friends. Wo gai chara rahe hai. Aur Rama ke saath hai. Duram agata, bahut dur se aaye hai. They come from very far, bhubukshitasya, and they're very hungry. Tasya annam. To them, can you give them some food? Sa anugasya pradiyata. If you can kindly oblige to give them, because they fainted. Krishna told them, don't ask for food. They still asked for food, right? Because they saw that they had fainted. If they're going to faint, then they have to speak loudly and say, please give them some food. Please give their friends some food. Pradiyatam, and can you give us all the varieties of food, because they were so hungry now. So, Sridhar Goswami says here, Sada Krishna Ramayati iti Rama. Balaram would not have objected to this meeting between the wives and Krishna, because Balaram always wants to make Krishna happy. Sada Krishna Ramayati. He always wants to make Krishna happy. Ramayati means to please and also to play. And that day, food hadn't come. Somehow Yashoda Mai had sent the messengers to take food, but the food hadn't come. Pahuncha nahi khana. Was then. And then today, the last verse for today. Shrutva achutam upayatam nityam tadarshana utsuka. Tata katha shipta manaso bhubhurvar jata sambrama. Akshipta manaso. The wives' minds were completely wedded to Krishna. Akshipta manaso. They were enchanted. Completely enchanted. And now they knew that Krishna wanted food. And so they were so wedded to Krishna. But now just think, ab sochiye, apne aap ko ye bol rahe. They said to themselves, Are mana, oh he mana, lajja aane chahiye tumko. Oh mind, shame on you. Shame on you, oh mind. Oh you crazy mind. Why have you lost all your consciousness because of enchantment? Your Lord is hungry. Akshipta manaso. Akshipta ka matlab hai gali bhi dena. Right? It means to be wedded, but iska dusra arth ye hai to insult. Akshipta manaso. They insulted their mind. They said, oh mind, you are so silly. Rather than feeding your Lord, you are here going into ecstasy. तुम्हारे प्राणनाथ आए हैं, भूखे हैं, उसको खाना देना चाहिए. लेकिन तुम उसको खाना नहीं दे रहे हो, ओ है मन, तुम तो मुरझा गई. Because at this time, this was the time to act very quick. This was the time to move. Jaldi, chalo. So then, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says they had a very intense greed to see Krishna. They used to say to themselves before this day, Kab, when will that day come? When Krishna somehow will be seen by us. When oh when? Kab, when will that day come? I'm sure even as devotees, we sometimes have these desires. We're chanting, we're doing kirtan. Sometimes you think to yourself, when Krishna will that day come? Or just somehow, not because of me. I don't have anything. मेरे पास कुछ नहीं है आपको देने के लिए. हमारा रबड़ी बेकार. लक्ष्मी जी के आगे, राधा रानी के आगे मेरा रबड़ी बेकार. गंधर्व के आगे मेरा गला बेकार. I can't sing like the Gandharvas can sing. So how can I please you? Right? A woman can think I'm not as beautiful as the gopis. And a man can think I am also not as pure-hearted as the cowherd boys. सब कुछ बेकार है. लेकिन एक चीज है ठाकुर जी, आपकी दया अपार है. Your mercy is so big, that somehow I feel that just a little bit of service which my guru has told me to do. हमारे गुरु ने कहा है हमको कि तुम ये छोटी सी सेवा करो. ये सेवा करने के कारण अगर थोड़ी सी दया हमको मिला है अगर आपके द्वारा, तो एक ना एक दिन हमारी मुलाकात होना चाहिए. Maybe one day, oh Lord, we can meet with each other. So the mind thinks like this. The mind of the Brahmanas' wives were always thinking when. And we still consider ourselves, we're on earth. Krishna's done his Leela. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam that he's only going to come after so many yugas, right? So when are we going to get the chance to meet him? But this was during that time they were saying when. Krishna was living in the next city. Hum Hague mein hai, right? If Krishna was in Amsterdam, right, in the main city, would we not go? Isn't it? If someone told us Krishna lives in Amsterdam and all of you live in Hague, chalo, Thakur ji ka darshan karne ke liye chalo. Let's go and see him. Right? What are you doing here rotting with your corpses? Let's go and see him. So we would go. But the structure of society at that time was such that they couldn't just leave their husbands and go. They were waiting for the right time. So they couldn't sit still. They'd lost taste in everything. Everything seemed like, there's no taste in this. Where is Krishna? When? And then suddenly Sambrahma. Bhabhurva Jata Sambrahma. Suddenly a festival arose in their consciousness. Suddenly they started to feel extremely excited. suddenly they started to feel full of energy. So first they lost consciousness, and then suddenly they got energy. That energy surged, and then they said, "Chalo, cook everything that has been cooked. Chalo, gather everything. Chalo, jate hai. Abhi ke jate hai." Yog Maya arranged for amazing varieties of food which even they had not cooked, suddenly started to appear because of the bhava of these patnis. They made more things. They started saying, "Allah, jaldi chawal lagao, ye banao, ye banao." They were shouting to each other, "Isko le lo. Acha, tum ye bhul gaye ho. Chalo, abhi." ये उत्सव निकला अपने हृदय में, पत्नी के हृदय में एक उत्सव निकला. And suddenly they all began to rush towards Krishna with this festival of trying to serve Krishna, Ram, and the cowherd boys some food. So now the mood changes. Okay? So we will finish for today. Tomorrow we will hear how, if Krishna desires, we will hear what obstacle they had to face. One more obstacle, and it wasn't a simple one. And finally, after facing this obstacle, they got to Krishna. How did Krishna speak to them? How did Krishna reciprocate with them? What did he say to them? What did they say to him? And then, how did the whole thing finish? I've got a lot to cover it nicely, but we can only make an attempt. Okay? So we covered 9 shlokas today, and by the Lord's grace, we have just to give you an idea and me an idea. Yeah, we have about 14 shlokas minimum to go tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, but we'll try. Today I sidetracked a little bit here and there. Okay. बोलिए जय जय श्री राधे